Maxine Waters adjusted her seatbelt and leaned back slightly, ready for a calm flight. The hum of the plane's engines filled the cabin, punctuated by the quiet chatter of passengers settling in. She smiled politely at the nearby flight attendants as they went about their duties, expecting nothing more than a normal, uneventful journey. But one attendant's eyes locked onto her with an intensity that immediately felt off. Approaching with brisk steps, the attendant's tone was sharp and unnecessarily confrontational over what seemed like a trivial request. Perhaps it was Maxine's calm demeanor, or maybe something as insignificant as the placement of her carry-on, but the tension in the air shifted instantly. Passengers began to notice the unusual interaction. A few craned their necks, sensing that something was wrong. Maxine, maintaining her usual composure, spoke softly, explaining her side politely. Yet the attendant ignored her words, escalating the situation further. Then, in a shocking moment that no one on board would ever forget, the attendant's hand shot out, a sudden slap across Maxine's face. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Phones were raised instinctively, passengers frozen in disbelief. Some instinctively moved closer to witness what had just happened, but no one dared to intervene immediately. The cabin fell into a stunned silence. The plane's usual background noises, the whir of the engines, the rustle of bags, murmurs of conversation, all disappeared under the weight of shock. Maxine's expression didn't waver outwardly, though a flash of surprise and hurt passed across her eyes. She remained seated, dignified, refusing to retaliate. Every eye was on the unfolding scene. The tension was palpable. The passengers waited, collectively holding their breath, unsure of what would happen next. What happened next would change the fate of everyone on that plane. After the shocking slap, the cabin was frozen in silence, but the flight attendant didn't stop there. Instead of apologizing or stepping back, the crew quickly formed a wall around the aggressive staff member, backing their actions. Their voices were firm, bordering on intimidating, as they insisted that Maxine had somehow provoked the incident. Maxine, seated with her back straight and hands calmly resting on her lap, refused to react with anger or panic. Her face showed a mix of disbelief and poise, but there was no hesitation in her posture. Every word the crew threw at her, she met with calm, composed responses, asserting her dignity without raising her voice. Passengers around her exchanged glances, their confusion growing by the second. Some clutched their phones, hesitating for a moment, then began recording the incident discreetly. A soft murmur spread through the cabin, whispers of disbelief, concern, and speculation. The flight crew, realizing the situation was quickly spiraling out of their control, attempted to regain authority. One attendant leaned in, lowering their voice so only Maxine could hear. "Please, just stay quiet. This will all blow over." But Maxine's expression remained unreadable. She shook her head ever so slightly, signaling that she would not allow herself to be silenced. Every attempt by the crew to control the narrative, from ignoring her polite explanations to gesturing for passengers to stay out of it, only heightened the tension. The camera phones hidden under tray tables and between seats caught every subtle movement, every exchanged glance, every hint of emotion in the room. Maxine's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the crew's growing frustration. Their faces tightened, their attempts to maintain control becoming more visible and desperate. The situation had transformed from a minor conflict into a dramatic standoff, and the entire cabin could feel it. The air seemed heavier with every passing second, charged with anticipation. Even as passengers recorded and whispered, Maxine never lost her composure. She kept her voice soft yet assertive, her eyes calm but piercing, silently demanding respect from everyone around her. The crew, now visibly irritated, attempted one last tactic, appealing to the captain through subtle gestures, hoping for support. But the captain remained distant, observing and waiting, allowing the tension to build. The moment hung in the air like a ticking bomb, the entire plane acutely aware that something had to give. And in the midst of all this, every passenger felt a growing anticipation. What would Maxine do next? How would this incident unfold? It was clear that the story on this flight had just begun, and no one aboard would ever forget this escalating clash between authority and dignity. The cabin remained tense, every passenger silently watching as the crew's hostility shifted from the flight attendant to Maxine herself. "You've caused a disturbance," one crew member hissed, leaning in close, trying to intimidate her. Another added, "Please, just stay quiet before this escalates further." Their words were calm on the surface, but the underlying threat was unmistakable. Passengers shifted uneasily in their seats. Some glanced at each other, unsure whether to intervene, while others gripped their phones tighter, recording discreetly. A few murmured quietly, whispering comments like, "I can't believe this is happening on a flight." The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone in the cabin, an invisible tension that made the air feel thick and heavy. Despite the mounting pressure, Maxine's composure never wavered. She sat straight, her eyes steady, her hands resting lightly on her lap. When the crew tried to corner her with a barrage of accusatory questions, she responded with a calm, unwavering voice. "I deserve respect like every other passenger." Her words, simple yet powerful, hung in the air. The passengers who had been quietly recording the incident felt the gravity of the statement, dignity in the face of unjust authority. It was a subtle reminder that standing firm did not require anger or confrontation. The crew, however, were growing increasingly frustrated. Each attempt to intimidate Maxine only highlighted their own insecurity. Their whispers and subtle gestures to the captain, who remained seated and observant, were met with nothing but the silent authority of a calm, composed Maxine. The power dynamic in the cabin had shifted, even if no one dared say it out loud yet. Passengers exchanged nervous glances. Some wanted to speak up to defend her, but feared the crew's reaction. Others sat frozen, caught between shock and admiration. The atmosphere was electric, a mix of fear, tension, and awe at Maxine's unwavering poise. If you were in her place, would you speak up or stay quiet? Comment, speak up or stay quiet. Maxine's authority started to resonate beyond the immediate conflict. Passengers who had felt powerless suddenly felt a sense of solidarity, silently rooting for her. The crew could feel the energy in the cabin shifting, a collective tension building. Their attempts at intimidation slowly losing impact. Even with multiple crew members pressuring her, Maxine never raised her voice, never lost her poise. She simply allowed her dignity to speak louder than their aggression, every word measured, every movement deliberate. Her patience and restraint amplified the drama, leaving the crew increasingly frustrated and the passengers increasingly captivated. By the time this part of the flight came to a pause, it was clear to everyone that this was more than a minor dispute. It had become a battle of composure, respect, and authority. And as the tension reached its breaking point, every passenger was silently waiting. What would happen next? Would someone intervene? Or would Maxine's unwavering calm finally force the crew to confront the consequences of their behavior? The stage was set for the next dramatic moment, and no one on the plane could look away. The captain, finally informed of the escalating situation, adjusted his headset and surveyed the cabin with a calm, measured gaze. From his vantage point, everything appeared under control, but the tension in the air told a very different story. The crew believed the matter had been contained, confident that their collective authority could manage the situation. Maxine Waters, however, remained composed. Seated with her back straight, hands resting lightly in her lap, she exuded a quiet strength that contrasted sharply with the anxious energy around her. Her calm eyes scanned the cabin, noting every glance, every whisper, every subtle shift in body language. She said nothing, but her presence alone sent a clear message. She would not be intimidated, nor would she allow injustice to go unchecked. Passengers were caught in a liminal state of anticipation. Some leaned slightly forward in their seats, curiosity mingled with unease. Others shifted uncomfortably, torn between the instinct to intervene and the fear of drawing attention. Phones hovered in hands, ready to record at a moment's notice, capturing every nuance of what was unfolding. The energy in the cabin was electric, like the quiet charge before a storm, everyone aware that something monumental was about to happen. The flight attendant who had instigated the incident lingered nervously, aware that the dynamics were shifting. Crew members exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty. Every subtle gesture, every whispered comment, hinted at the cracks beginning to form in their facade of control. Then, the unmistakable sound of the aircraft door sliding open drew everyone's attention. Heads turned instinctively, eyes widening. A figure appeared in the doorway, someone unexpected. The presence of this new arrival sent a ripple of tension across the cabin. Passengers instinctively leaned forward, whispering to each other, sensing that the balance of power was about to shift. Maxine remained still, her posture unchanging, her expression serene. Yet there was a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in her demeanor, a quiet acknowledgement that the moment of reckoning was near. The cabin, once tense but contained, now felt like a pressure cooker on the verge of bursting. The flight attendant's bravado faltered as the figure moved closer, commanding attention without a word. Crew members whispered to each other, unsure how to respond. The passengers' murmurs grew louder, curiosity turning into anticipation, the energy of the moment reaching a palpable peak. Every eye in the cabin tracked the figure's approach, sensing that the conflict was about to escalate to its most dramatic stage. The stage was perfectly set. Maxine's unwavering dignity, the crew's fading authority, and the arrival of an unexpected force ready to challenge the imbalance of power. And then, just when the cabin thought it had seen everything, someone entered who would change everything. The moment held in suspense, the cabin collectively holding its breath, as everyone prepared for the storm that was about to hit. The aircraft door slid open again, and all eyes turned toward the aisle. Calm, deliberate footsteps echoed across the cabin floor. Maxine's husband had arrived. There was no rush, no unnecessary display of anger, just a commanding presence that instantly drew the attention of every person on the plane. Passengers instinctively straightened in their seats, the tension in the cabin shifting from uncertainty to awe. The crew, previously confident in their authority, now stiffened. There was something about the way he moved, the way he carried himself, that demanded respect. Without a single word spoken, he stopped a few feet away from Maxine, taking in the scene with a measured, assessing gaze. Then he spoke not with anger, not with threats, but with calm, precise authority. "I want a full account of what just happened," he said, his voice steady and unwavering. From start to finish, no details omitted. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected compliance, fear, maybe an argument, but this was different. There was no panic in his tone, only clarity. His presence alone made their previous attempts to intimidate Maxine look small and misguided. A flight attendant hesitated, opening her mouth to respond, but words faltered. Maxine's husband did not raise his voice, did not issue a single threat. He simply asked questions, sharp and clear, forcing accountability with precision. Every pause, every carefully chosen word put pressure on the crew. Passengers watched in rapt attention. Phones continued recording, some raised openly now, capturing the unfolding confrontation. The energy in the cabin shifted. Where there had been fear, now there was tension. Where there had been arrogance, there was doubt. Maxine remained seated, calm and dignified. She did not speak over him, did not try to interfere. Her husband's presence was not just protective. It was authoritative, and it amplified the quiet strength she had already displayed. The crew's earlier confidence began to crumble. Subtle gestures betrayed them, tightened lips, shifting weight, nervous glances toward each other. Even the flight attendant who had slapped Maxine seemed smaller, her earlier bravado replaced with uncertainty. She was facing someone who could see through any attempt to mislead or manipulate the story. "Explain why you felt it was acceptable to physically confront a passenger," he continued, voice even and controlled. "Do you understand the consequences of your actions?" The cabin was silent except for the low hum of the engines and the occasional soft murmur from passengers reacting to the confrontation. Every word hung heavy in the air, and the atmosphere had shifted from a standoff to a moment of reckoning. Even the captain, observing from his seat, seemed more alert, aware that the balance of power had dramatically changed. The crew's attempts to cover the incident, to control the narrative, were crumbling under the weight of a calm, commanding authority. The passengers felt it too. Their sense of tension was now mixed with anticipation. Something significant was about to happen, something that could not be ignored or undone. With one presence, the entire dynamic shifted. Control was no longer in the hands of those who had tried to dominate the cabin. The moment was electric. Every eye was on the husband, every mind wondering what would come next. The stage was now perfectly set for the ultimate turning point. Truth, justice, and accountability were about to collide with arrogance and authority. The cabin held its collective breath as Maxine's husband stood firm, his calm authority radiating through the rows of anxious passengers and crew members alike. With measured words, he finally revealed the truth. He had direct legal and corporate authority connected to the airline. "I am authorized to review incidents like this immediately," he said, his tone controlled, yet undeniably commanding. "Your actions today are not only unacceptable, they are grounds for immediate disciplinary action." The crew members' confident facades began to crack. Whispers passed between them as doubt seeped into their demeanor. The flight attendant who had slapped Maxine shrank slightly, realizing the gravity of the situation. The arrogance that had carried her through earlier moments now seemed fragile, as if the walls of authority she had relied on were crumbling around her. Passengers, previously hesitant and anxious, felt a sense of vindication. Phones recorded every word, capturing the undeniable confrontation and the power shift unfolding before them. The videos that had begun as silent witnesses now became evidence, proof of the injustice and the crew's misconduct. Maxine remained seated, her calm composure a stark contrast to the escalating unease of the crew. Her husband gestured toward the passenger who had quietly recorded the initial incident. "Let's review what happened from these recordings," he said. The videos played on the small screen in the cabin, showing the slap, the unjust aggression, and the crew's attempts to intimidate her. Every passenger could see it clearly, and the evidence left no room for dispute. The truth was undeniable. The crew's behavior was fully exposed, their attempts at maintaining control reduced to embarrassment. Even those who had earlier believed the crew's version of events could no longer ignore what had truly transpired. A hush fell over the cabin, the tension transforming from fear to awe. The power dynamics had completely shifted. What had begun as an attempt to humiliate a single passenger had now become a clear lesson in accountability, dignity, and the consequences of abusing authority. "Do you think justice would have happened if no one recorded this? Comment why, yes or no." The crew, now fully exposed, exchanged glances filled with regret and panic. Maxine's husband continued calmly, outlining the immediate steps to ensure accountability and fairness. The captain, witnessing the shift, nodded subtly, confirming that proper procedures would be followed. Passengers whispered among themselves, some relieved, others inspired by Maxine's unwavering dignity. The cabin had transformed from a place of intimidation to a stage showcasing courage, composure, and the undeniable power of truth. By the end of this segment, it was clear. Justice was no longer a possibility. It was happening, live in front of everyone. The stage was now set for the final aftermath, where the consequences of the crew's actions would be revealed, and the world would witness Maxine's strength go viral. The moment the truth was fully revealed, the airline wasted no time. The entire crew involved in the incident was immediately removed from duty and later terminated. Every passenger on board felt the weight of accountability being enforced. What had begun as a shocking moment of aggression and humiliation had transformed into a clear statement. Disrespect and abuse of authority would not be tolerated. News of the incident spread like wildfire. Within hours, videos captured by passengers flooded social media platforms, viewed by millions worldwide. People were stunned by the audacity of the initial attack, but even more inspired by Maxine Waters' calm, dignified response. Her restraint in the face of aggression became the talk of the internet. Viewers praised her courage, highlighting how she stood her ground without resorting to anger or retaliation. Comments poured in from all corners of the globe. This is the definition of composure under pressure. She handled that situation with grace and strength. Everyone needs to learn from this. Respect is not optional. The airline quickly issued a public apology, acknowledging the crew's misconduct and pledging immediate reforms. Policies were reviewed and updated to prevent similar incidents in the future, and mandatory training on professional conduct and passenger respect was implemented. Maxine's story became a powerful example of the impact of dignity, patience, and moral courage. It reminded the world that even in moments of extreme stress and injustice, standing firm with calm authority can turn the tide. Her husband's timely intervention ensured accountability, but Maxine's restraint and composure were the real heroes of the story. Passengers on the flight spoke to reporters afterward, sharing how Maxine's actions inspired them. Some admitted that they had been hesitant to intervene earlier, but witnessing her calm bravery encouraged them to reflect on their own approach to injustice. If you believe everyone deserved respect, type respect in the comments and subscribe for more powerful stories. The story did not just end with justice for Maxine. It sparked a global conversation about authority, accountability, and dignity. From casual social media viewers to news outlets, millions shared the videos and discussed the lessons learned. Maxine's story became a template for how to respond to public injustice with grace, courage, and unwavering integrity. Even weeks later, clips of the incident continued to circulate online, serving as a reminder that standing up for oneself does not always require confrontation. Sometimes, patience, composure, and the right support can make all the difference. By the time the story reached its final viewers, the message was clear. Respect is a right, not a privilege, and those who abuse authority will face the consequences. Maxine Waters' poise and bravery turned a moment of public humiliation into a global lesson in dignity, leaving an unforgettable mark on everyone who witnessed it.